Are there any drummers in the house?
I play percussion. That's because you couldn't play anything else.
Shut up. Come here, dude.
Hey, man. Do you touch my drum set?
Nope.
It's just weird, because seems like someone definitely touched my drum set.
Yeah, that is weird. I didn't touch them.
I am warning you right now, if you touch my drums, I will stab you in the neck with a knife.
Not quite my tempo. It's all good. No worries. Here we go.
Podcast. My name is Daniel, and this is episode 57. 57 Hines. Not really. It's not Hines, but it is Matt Tucci from Groovru. Groovru. There we go. We got it. I finally said it right, because you know me and saying things that are different, I screw it up. So, yes, I had a wonderful, wonderful conversation with Matt over Skype. We just kind of talked shop. We talked about his drum background. His dad was an actually, quite well-known sound engineer. We talked about his, us both being a little, we had shenanigans we like to do in band class, and then we also talked about being in garage bands, and now he's a full-time drummer out in San Francisco, and he's teaching lessons, drumming for his band, all that. And then we also, we kind of talk shop about social media stuff, because we both have social media accounts that are doing drum-related stuff. He's more doing the drum humor and, just talking about the stuff he loves about drums, because we all have different perspectives on the things we like about drums. So it was nice to talk about things that we both. At the very end, it got maybe a little real for both of us, because we were like talking about some of the the ups and downs of running a social media thing that's related to drums. We've talked about how it's not really good to talk about talk crap about drummers you don't like, because you never know when they may want to reach out to you and be on your podcast or like your stuff, and you don't want to burn bridges. So it's about positivity, man. It's about positivity. So it was a very super fun episode. Learned a lot, had a couple laughs, talked about stand-up comedy and stuff like that. And so here it is, episode 57. I can't believe it. I'm cranking them out, so I'm cranking them out. Hopefully we can do one here in a sec. So I'm going to finish up this intro. So yes, go check them out. He's on Instagram at Groovru. It is GROOVRU. And then you can also follow them on Twitter, Facebook. Go check out his band, daytimenightlife.com. And he makes shirts, and he's also talking about that he's going to be making some drumsticks here soon, and also baseball bats. How rad is that? So, big baseball fan as well. So, here it is, episode 57. Matt Tucci, the Tooch, in the house. I'm screaming. All right, guys, welcome back to the Drumheads podcast, and I am joined by Matt Tucci of, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, because I always struggle with things. Groovru, right?
Groovru.
There we go.
Yes, there we go.
Me and my wife, I'm like, she's like, it's like guru. She's like, say guru. I'm like, guru. She's like, nah, I'd groove to it. I'm like, I think I got it, but.
Groovru, yeah. We have some fun with it there. That's just a silly little expression I came up with one day. I was out working, delivering flowers back on the East Coast before I moved out to California here, and I brought those two words together, groove and guru, and I said, I might be up to something here, and I went and told my dad, and he's like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, you silly. Yeah. And now we're here.
Well, so how long you been doing your, how would you describe it? Is it more just like a social media, just posting about drums? You got some shirts and stuff as well.
So right at the current moment, it's mostly a social media platform for me. I actually just bought the domain name Groovru.com.
Oh, nice.
Last week or two, so I'm in the process of building my website, as I think you are getting there eventually too.
Eventually,
right?
Yep. It's a work in progress, especially having 3 kids.
Oh boy.
And full-time job. It's like, where do I find the time to do podcasts and a website? And at this point, I'm not making any money from this, so everything I'm putting into it is,
sure.
You're like,
same.
Yeah.
Yeah, right now, I'm breaking even maybe on in terms of I'm sending off a lot of shirts to like some of my favorite drummers. I got to send some off to like Steve Smith
Oh,
of
nice.
Journey, Jimmy Chamberlain, Smashing Pumpkins, Thomas Pridgen, Mars Volta has one of my shirts. I got to take a lesson with him, so it's been a really cool way for me to connect with a bunch of drummers that I really look up to in the community.
Nice. So you were just driving and you kind of just came up with the idea and you're like, hey, I'm gonna just do this.
I'm gonna start putting it's like I think I have something to say about drumming, and I just started saying it. Really, that's all it was. I started off just like anybody else. You start off at 0 followers, and no one really cares about what you're doing, and you kind of just have to shout and make your voice heard until enough people are listening to you, and even then, you still got to keep shouting because there's always more people to hear you.
Yeah, for sure. It's it just sounds like me, kind of like a passion thing. You're like, I just love drums. I love talking about drums and all that.
That's really what it came down to. I've been drumming since I was 9. I started in like concert band, started on snare drum and bass drum and mallets and that whole deal. And then eventually got a drum set when I was 12. Started in with like punk bands and jazz band and now I've moved on, play rock, indie, metal, all sorts of different things depending on the day. Yeah, I just really love drums and I really love music, and I wanted to express that, I guess, and share it with other people. See if there's interest.
Nice. Well, so let's start, I guess, at the beginning. So
Sure.
So you were 9 years old when you started playing. So did you go to like a band concert and you were like, oh, I want to do that kind of thing, or was it something you've been wanting to do and your parents were like, no, you're all right. You don't need to play drums. You're fine. You're like, no, I really want to play drums. That was me. I'm like, I want to play drums. They're like, no, it's not happening because that's just too much noise. So,
my parents were always really supportive. Gotta love mom and dad. My dad is a sound engineer for his whole life. He had been out on the road touring George Benson, Hall & Oates, Frankie Valli. Actually met like Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and went on their tour bus when I was really, really young, before I could even remember. And so it's really just music was always, surrounded me even before I was really conscious of it. And then I just kind of grew into it. Honestly, I wouldn't have played an instrument if I had my choice. My mom was like, you need to go play in bands. And I was like, even if they make you play a piccolo, you're going to play in band, even if it's the last instrument. And I was like, no, Mom, please, no.
Yeah.
She called up the band instructor, and they were like, all the instruments are taken. He can have his choice. And I was like, I want a drum. And
Nice.
And yeah, that was 4th grade. And just really, I guess, caught on from there.
Nice.
Go ahead.
But yeah, it's funny doing this podcast. There's like two dynamics. There's the people like me who came from a non-musical family whatsoever, and then people who came from musical families. So it sounds like you kind of had a musical family in a way, especially with your dad being a sound engineer. That has a lot to do with it.
Definitely, and he hacks around on bass and drums a little bit too. He plays, and my mom was really into singing when she was younger. She was always in the church choir, doing that stuff. So it's definitely in my blood. But neither of them are professional musicians, quote unquote. My dad was around them his whole career. My mom's a high school English teacher, just recently retired. So it was kind of a balance of both. I didn't have the crazy jazz dad, Joe Jackson type, if you don't play this exactly right, I'm going to do whatever at all. It was always very much, here's something you might like to do, explore it. And I actually started on piano, even younger than that. I started on piano, I was like 5 or 6, and I played that for a little while, and I was like, I really don't like piano. And Mom was like, okay. And that, that was it. And then I eventually found drums like 2 years later.
Nice. So I'm guessing the musical palette you had, from your parents, especially your dad, being around all those amazing, musicians, you could get access to good music really easily, which is awesome.
My mom always had great music playing in the car too, as well as my dad taking me to shows. It's always the Eagles and Bruce Springsteen, Led Zeppelin, and the Beatles, and Bob Marley, and I can go on forever. But that stuff, I can see it now. There's a bunch of shelves at home, just stacks of CDs of old blues stuff, really just very, deep discography that I got to discover and listen to. I had all this stuff. I remember I had Blood Sugar Sex Magic by the Red Hot Chili Peppers when I was like 12 or 13. Probably shouldn't have had it at that age, but that album's amazing for me musically.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And that's, just hearing that stuff before I was even thinking, what do I want to do with my life? Do I want to really drum? Is this something just fun? Any of that, it was always just good music, just around me. So I was just lucky to have that.
Yeah. It's funny. My dad, he was the kind of the catalyst for me reaching. I remember the first CD he gave me was Hotel California.
Nice.
And I don't know how he came about it. I think he said someone at work gave it to him, and there we go. Just like I remember getting that album, and this was in 94, 95, I think, and sitting on my bed and just playing along to Don Henley. Because I just joined the middle school band playing, snare drum, and just like wailing away on pillows. And it took like several years. Like, hey, I have the snare drum. How about we get the other components to make a full kit? And they're like,
right,
maybe. And they never like thought I would really stick with it. And then like by I think like my freshman year in high school, they're like, okay, I think you're going to stick with it. So it's more of us like, is this investment going to pay off? If we pay all this money for a drum kit, are we going to get our return on it? I guess is how my parents looked at it. And they're like,
right, for sure.
Yeah. And they're like, okay, I think we have a justifiable reason to give them a drum set, which is always
It's expensive. It's really hard to get into drums, man. It's like, there's not a lot of really, really cheap alternatives where you can go buy, a $100 acoustic guitar or even less than that and go learn how to play guitar pretty well. There's certain elements that you can kind of makeshift happen for a really cheap drum set, but at the end of the day, like the nicer gear sounds a lot nicer, right? You're not going to get the same sound out of a Sabian B8 as you are out of an AAX. It's just why that's more expensive and why the pros use that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And and like a guitar, you can plug in a crappy guitar into a nice amp or a pedal and get a decent sound. Where if you've got like a beat up drum set, yeah, you could throw some new heads on there, but you're still not going to have quality sound.
Right, and as far as cymbals go, you can't tune them. So whatever they sound like, And so if you have cheap, inexpensive cymbals, they're going to sound like cheap and inexpensive cymbals. And if you're lucky enough to find some really nice cymbals used for cheap online, that would be my advice. Because new stuff's expensive.
Have you ever looked on I've been doing this lately, I've gone on Goodwill auctions. Have you ever done that? I
have not.
Go on there and type in cymbals, but spell it with the SY instead of CY, because most people just, when they think cymbals, they don't think like we do, like a drummer. And you could find like these crazy deals on cymbals that people dropped off like a set of Zildjian A custom hi-hats, and they're selling them for like $15.
Yep. Yeah, no, similar type vein here. So there's this site called Fat Fingers. I think it's fatfingers.co.uk, if I'm not mistaken. And it's the same deal. So you type in, whatever you're looking for. Zildjian is usually, that's a weird word, right? So a lot of people misspell that. And what this will do is just make all of the variations for how that word could be misspelled and then look that up in eBay for you. So there's all these eBay listings of, stuff that's misspelled that you can get. It's the same exact idea. I got some, cheap AX Sabian hats for like $50 off.
Nice.
It's like, steal them.
Oh yeah, or pawn shops. I always recommend people go to pawn shops. And a lot of times you can talk them down. Like I talked a guy down. I have a 16-inch Z custom crash I got for like $20.
Nice.
And I talked him down out of 40. And I'm like, well, the thing with this is it doesn't have the sticker on the bottom, and how like they'll put that manufacturer like barcode sticker on there. People take that off automatically. But I made up this this BS reason like, hey, if that doesn't have the sticker, like it makes the value go down. And the guy's like, oh, I didn't know that. I was like, yeah, it's like a kind of a collector's thing. People are kind of funny about that. And I was like, I'll give you $20 for it. He's like, sold. I'm like, all right.
So much of that is just people that are moving, or they bought their son or daughter gear, and they have no interest in it, and they just want to get rid of it for as cheap as possible. Which is when you can be the beneficiary. Hey, why not 20 extra bucks saved?
Yeah. So back to early beginnings of drumming. Who was that first drummer that you kind of like really identified with?
Ooh, oh man, that's so hard to just pick one.
That's like picking your favorite child.
Well, luckily I don't have any of those quite yet. I'm a little younger than you, so.
How old are you?
I'm at 24.
Oh, okay, so you're a lot younger than me. I'm 32.
Okay, so, you got a couple years on me. I'll get there. Hopefully, I'll get there. But I was definitely big into Blink 182. Travis Barker was huge, and like I said, Chad Smith with Red Hot Chili Peppers. Without really knowing it at the time, Mitch Mitchell for Jimi Hendrix Experience.
Oh, nice.
just listening to that band, it's hard to see anything but Jimi Hendrix, just because he's so much of that. But obviously, the other two pieces of that band really made them the Jimi Hendrix experience, is what they are.
For sure.
John Bonham and the Led Zeppelin, Ringo Starr, as much as, especially early in my career when I was thinking, oh yeah, I can do all these chops, whatever. Ringo's nothing, he can't play. That's probably one of the most naive, stupid things I've ever thought in my life. If you just listen to that cat play, the groove that he plays with and the steady time, he's not even playing with a metronome a lot of those times, and he's still holding tempo. It's crazy. Well, he's amazing.
And the simplicity of his beats, they match the Beatles' music.
Absolutely, right?
You wouldn't want like a John Bonham or like a Mitch or you just said his name and I'm blanking on it.
Mitchell, yeah, no,
Mitch Mitchell. I was like, is that right? But bashing away on a Beatles song, it would sound so out of place.
It would. And the Beatles are, that's what they are. They're that kind of just catchy pop band. They did it better than anybody, right? If you were to take their lyrics and put them in like Taylor Swift's mouth or somebody else in today, I would probably be like, I don't like that song, right? But when it comes from the Beatles, just the melodic, textures that they're able to work with and their harmonies, and Ringo just holding down the back, funky but really simple and relatable to a lot of people. That's why they're the Beatles, man.
Well, and there's that saying that drummers who groove get jobs,
Sure.
and you could be your Mike Portnoy's or your Mike Mangini's and do the, all that crazy stuff, and it's amazing. But the older I get, I've noticed I appreciate the groove, and I've been really trying to, me personally, focus on working on my groove, because so many years I was like a snotty when I was in my teens, early 20s, I was a little bit of an asshole when it came to, oh, check out my chops. I'm like Carter Beauford,
Me too, man. I'm the same exact way. And honestly, I'm just kind of getting out of that now within the last, I want to say year and a half, I'll say, with me going from, oh, how fast can I play? I want to just do, singles on a pillow until my wrists fall off, versus let's listen to a pocket. Where does it change? Just one, bell hit on your ride. How does that change the groove? Even if it's just one note in there, it's those kind of intricate textures have suddenly become a lot more interesting to me than crazy 64th notes thrown all over the kit, which are awesome too. I love all that shit, and I'm still working towards being able to play that. But yeah, for sure. And for me, working as a professional drummer, definitely groove. No one, when I'm stepping into audition, no one cares if I can play that stuff, because 99% of the bands you're going to go play with don't do that stuff. They aren't Slayer, they aren't Dream Theater, they aren't the Winery Dogs, whatever. They're some, they're a pop band. They want the Ringo type drumming. They want your straight ahead country drumming. You got to be able to talk with the rest of your musicians. And if you're trying to take the lead and do all this extra stuff with people, especially when you don't really know them very well, like in auditions, they're going to look at you crazy because they don't know where the one is, and you're not doing your job. Your job as a drummer is to be that train. You got to hold down the rhythm for everybody else. If you're not doing that, you're not going to get that job. You're not going to get that money.
Yeah, for sure. And so, so you started in school band. Did you stick with school band throughout, high school and all that, or did you kind of phase in or phase out?
I was in and out. I don't think either of my band teachers will be listening. I was a little bit of a rebel, and
what drummer isn't a rebel at that age?
I guess so. But yeah, definitely. I mean, I was always in it for sure, but whether I was always in class or not might have been a different story. But I was always still loving music. I think a lot of it with band is, we were still doing a lot of the concert snare stuff, and I'd kind of already moved on to, I just want to really just play drum set, and I don't really care about any of these other things. I don't want to be playing triangle over in the corner. So if that's what if you're going to have me do that, I might not find my way to class that day. So is that a good advice? No, kid, stay in school. But I did it.
I got in more trouble in band than any other of my other classes. And
I got
I think it was out of boredom. I think people, and band geeks can testify to this. You're not playing the whole song, especially when you get into orchestral and concert band. You're playing, a triangle 5 minutes into a 15-minute piece.
So much of it is counting, and I don't like counting. I like, counting is important. Don't get me wrong, but playing, it's about playing.
Yeah.
at the end of the day. And yeah, it was definitely a boredom thing where, you know, I was at a point where I was surpassed all my other peers, and we were still playing stuff that was, you know, down middle school, you know, happy puppy stuff. And I didn't care, and I took myself out of that situation. At times I definitely wish I'd, you know, just stepped in there and stayed around, and maybe, you know, I'd have a little better chops just from, you know, extra X amount of minutes that I would have been playing in there. I definitely do have that feeling sometimes, but I also had a lot of fun just hanging out in the lunchroom with my friends. So
yeah, I enjoyed marching band because at least there it was a consistent playing.
Sure.
But concert band was such a drag, and the only reason I took it was I could sleep because there was like 15 drummers, so a lot of the songs you weren't playing at all because you had to like you know, we had like the way we had it at our school, we had 3 pieces of music, and you would play like maybe on 1.5. So like if they were practicing on like a whole song one whole day, I had like a music stand like folded up, sleeping, and then I had one directly in front of me so the band teacher would not see me. Then he caught on to that, so I'm like, "Where's the gong?" So we had this giant Zildjian gong, and I would sleep behind it, you know. And
see, you crafty there. I had way less technique. It was just whenever you asked if anybody wanted to play in that song, I just wouldn't raise my hand. And then whenever those days that we were playing those songs were there, it'd be, you know, we'd get dismissed. So I wouldn't be in class.
Well, and also the further you stayed in it, you became like section leaders and stuff like that. So I made it to that point, and like I pretty much just delegated all the stuff to other people, so I didn't have to do jack the whole the whole senior year. And,
I'm glad it's not just me then. That's good.
I think that's for drummers like ourselves, we have to. It's like out of necessity. You've got to do this. I guess.
Again, though, sometimes I could kick myself and just say, you know, if you had just stuck in there and just played, you would have extra, you know, 100, 200 hours. You're that much closer to playing 10,000 hours. But
it is what it is.
No regrets, exactly.
Yeah. So you kind of stuck to more playing in, you know, garage bands, more or less.
Yeah, you know, as one of my neighbors had got a bass, and we just started playing around and writing punk songs pretty much. You know, I kind of started in that scene. There's this little, it's called Ithaca Underground, and it's this little, you know, punk scene, all ages shows, and it would bring out everybody from, we'd have like the preppy polo girls that were there, and then you'd have, you know, the punks with the mohawks, and it was just a really interesting dynamic, and, you know, people singing along, and it was a really strong music scene. You know, we'd have good contingencies at our shows, sometimes even more than I do out here in San Francisco. So that's, it's good to grow up in that kind of environment, to have really supportive, you know, musicians, fellow musicians, as well as people who just really love music around you. I was just lucky, again, to just grow up in that environment in my hometown.
We're in hometown. That was on the East Coast?
East Coast, yeah. I'm from Ithaca, New York.
Oh, okay.
It's a little, it's central, like dead center of the state. Right on the lake. Gorgeous little place. I went to school there as well for television and radio with an audio and engineering minor.
Oh, okay. So
yes.
what brought you to San Francisco?
San Francisco. So I've been out here about 2 years, and as you know, in addition to playing music here, which there certainly are better opportunities and more musicians in a bigger city for me. I've met my bandmates here, and we're pretty much a family now. My band, Daytime Nightlife, we play all over the Bay. I was lucky enough to meet those guys through Craigslist, and so I just kind of moved out here on a whim, saying I'm going to move out and find like-minded people who are also into music, as well as I'm also into television and movie writing. So I have a few scripts, and California is certainly a better market for the Hollywood type
for sure
places than New York, central New York, small little town.
Yeah. It's funny, you know, it's funny how like young drummers are like, I want to make it. And they're like, okay, well, why are you here? You know, if you're not in Nashville or New York or, you know, San Francisco, LA, Chicago, Atlanta, maybe those like, you know, 7 or 8 places, you're not really going to get famous just playing out, doing local shows in your little, you know, I live in Asheville, North Carolina. Do you know where that is?
I do.
Okay. Well, most people don't. So, so you're like Asheville, North Carolina. Like, where's that? You know, and you know, you've got to, you know, if you got to know where your audience is, and also you got to know where the musicians are as well.
Yeah, as well as the, you know, record people. It's kind of an unfortunate truth. You know, my band's been doing it totally DIY. So we actually, because I went to school for audio as well as our lead singer, guitar player, we, built our recording studio. We got ourselves a mic cabinet. We recorded everything that we wrote, and we mixed and mastered it ourselves. Did the whole process, put it out on Spotify or on our website. And that's great. And the fact that you have that amount of control because technology costs have come down is awesome these days. But at the end of the day, can we compete with someone who's got a $250,000 marketing budget? No, not right now. Yeah. So, there's those eyes for those people who do have that kind of money. They're probably not all hanging out in Nashville, North Carolina, or Ithaca, New York. They're in these big cities. It's where the money is. It's where the people are. It's kind of a hub.
Yeah. So what's your current band you're playing in?
So I'm playing with Daytime Nightlife. Yep, that's like I said, all the guys I'm living with. It's indie rock, pop side of things. We have a lot of fun with it. Playing all over San Francisco as well as up and down the Bay. Looking to get down to LA in the next few months here. So nice. A lot's coming to term. Over at the house. So on top of all that, we also do, I'm part of a baseball bat company. I don't know if you saw on the social media at all, but I said I was partnering with Birdman Bats. So we're going to start doing some Groovru sticks in the future. And so I'm part of that team, making baseball bats, and selling them. So it's always busy over at the house. Band is also the baseball company, and those are the same guys that help me print off all the Groovru shirts and send them off. So
nice.
Yeah.
So, what style of music would you say is your most favorite to play?
Ooh. I think at the end of the day, I'm kind of a rock guy. I do enjoy everything else. My jazz chops aren't, great, but I enjoyed taking that, going take 5 or something and playing with that, maybe switching over to traditional for a little bit. But yeah, at the end of the day, I got long hair. I know you can't see that on the podcast, but
I verify it is.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. If you got something I can headbang to and play solid groove, but then also when it's time to do some choppy stuff with fills, I don't have to be really timid about it, and I can express myself and really play and throw a lot of energy at the kit. That's kind of when I'm having my most fun. I'm bouncing up and down and dancing, and the people usually are too.
Yeah, well, that's always the best, is when you get the personal gratification, but also the gratification from the audience is always a plus. So, and
that's why we do it, right? I always say that, for a lot of other jobs, you don't get applause at the end of the day, right?
I know I don't. I work in a warehouse by day, and it's like, usually it's like, damn it, where is this? I'm like, that's my life. Right. And so now luckily doing the podcast, I get some, feedback from fans, but there's still nothing like playing out live, and even if it's just like the most boring ass crowd you could find, just a little clap, little affirmation is always it goes a long way.
And you know what? Even if they don't clap, which I've had this happen on rare occasions, but it does happen when you're playing at a little dive bar on 2 a.m. on a Monday night, and there's 3 people there that aren't really paying attention. Even when they don't clap at the end of it, that feeling is awesome. Because you just put it all out on the line, and you don't care, man. You don't care anymore. You're just like, I just had fun. I did my thing. If you don't like it, that's you. Yeah. I'm happy. I'm chilling.
Well, and it's funny, a lot of times you think, oh, these people hated what we played, and they didn't clap. They had this approval on their face, and you're like packing up. They're like, oh, hey, really like what you did tonight. And you're like thinking, well, could you not clap?
Applause. Applause would be nice, but I guess some people are too timid to clap or something, man. Yeah. It's you'll get that a lot where people, maybe they just have that frowny face that when you look at them, they just don't look like happy people. Maybe they're not happy people, but the fact that you were able to touch them with music, even if it's just for a little bit, that's a beautiful thing, and they were willing to reach back out to you and be like, hey, I know I looked unhappy, but I really just had a lot of fun. I like what you do. That's, that feeling at the end of the night, nothing beats that.
Yeah, there isn't. So, playing live shows, I don't think I've ever asked this question. What is your worst gig you've had?
Worst gig? Oh, man. Yeah, so, I'll say it's a worst best gig. I was just telling part of the story there. Like I was saying, it was late, it's a little dive bar right off the Tenderloin part of San Francisco. If you know where that is, as Dave Chappelle said, there ain't nothing tender about the Tenderloin.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a great stand-up album.
Yes. And so, we're there at 1 a.m. There's probably like 2 or 3 people there. They're like the usual bar regulars. They're clearly just kind of drunk and totally out of it. Mm-hmm. And we're playing on stage. It's a, kind of crappy house kit. Stage is really, really small. We're all crammed onto this little stage, and our keyboard player is stuck off to the side. Mm-hmm. And we're just thinking, stand-up comedy is our opener. And it's not good stand-up comedy.
No.
No, never. So the people aren't in, the greatest mood already to begin with. And we get up there and, we're able to play. We're able to reach them a little bit, for sure. We get some applause. Yeah, we like what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And then, our middle song we thought it was going to be our big song. And we threw everything at it. We got our shirts off at the end. At this point, we're all sweating and shit. Uh-huh. And, we finish and there it is, silence. Just total silence. And that's kind of the fear, right? Mm-hmm. When you're sitting off stage is, what if they don't like this? Or, what if I mess up or whatever? And kind of having that feeling of, even this is probably the worst it's going to get right here. And I'm fine. Mm-hmm. At that, I think, although it might have been the worst gig, I think that taught me the most. And I look back on that gig with a lot of fond memories now.
Yeah. I have to say my worst gig was I was in high school, and somehow I got talked into playing a show in this little ho-dunk town in South Carolina on a weekend, and someone asked me, it was like a church thing, and someone is like, hey, you need to do this. They asked me like 5 months ahead of time. I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll do it. And I'm 14, 15. I don't remember, 4 minutes from then. I was like, what show? So like it was like the homecoming weekend. I had a date to the homecoming dance. It was this girl I've been really liking, and then the guy's like, "Oh, hey, it's this weekend." I'm like, "Oh, sorry, I can't do it, man. I got this date. It's gonna be, I really like this girl. She's super hot." And they're like, "No, you're gonna play." I'm like, "No, I'm not." And so they were pissed, and somehow they called my mom.
Oh gosh,
which is the worst. And so I get like this. Danielle! I'm like, what? She's like, did you welch? I'm like, welch on the thing? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to the dance with Christina. And she's like, no, you're not. You're going to call her and cancel. And I call her, and she's like, really? You got to cancel your date because of a show? I'm like, yeah. So totally screwed that relationship up for
ever.
We get to the show. It's for a horse and pony show. We're playing in the middle of essentially like a rodeo.
But I bet that smells great.
Oh, yeah. And there was like 4 people there. And the 4 people were like the wives of the other members I was playing with. So we played to nobody. But the worst part was, at the very end, all these people came and showed up. We were like, what the hell? And what it was, they were giving away a goat after we sang.
Ooh.
And then after they gave away the goat, we started playing again. Everybody left, and I'm thinking of the guys like, I hate you.
I could be having a lot more fun right now with Christina.
And you dragged me to this shit town to do this, and I was pissed. And but things worked out.
But, yeah, there you go. So Christina's not your wife, I'm assuming.
No, Christina's not our wife.
Okay.
But it's just funny how when you're a teenager, things get away from you, and you just forget,
I mean, I'm 24. I have a hard enough time dealing with that now, man. Does it ever go away?
No. Well, it gets a little bit better. At my age, especially when you have kids, you're like, you have to remember things a little bit more detailed. It's like, what time is the oldest ones? Oh, yes, it's today. Yes. So you start to remember.
Birthdays and feeding and all that. I don't even have a dog to take care of, really. So.
Yeah. We don't have a dog, thank the Lord, because then I would really be like stressed out because it'd be like, okay, we got the kids fed. What am I forgetting? Oh, crap, the dog. Yeah. So what kind of gear are you rocking? What's your brands of choice? Or
oh man, so like I wouldn't say I'm like loyal to anybody right now. I'm. Part of it is definitely doing Groovru and wanting to be able to try out, a whole bunch of different stuff, just to see what the market is and be able to inform people about, just what I think about it, take it or leave it. But I still am working with my Thai Maple Rock Pro that I've had my entire drumming life. Silver, sparkly, beautiful thing. With a Pearl Export tom that I got when I was like probably 13 or 14 off eBay, lying about my age. And then I got some Zildjian A Customs for I got a 21st anniversary ride.
Oh, nice.
As well as the Crash 10-inch? No, Splash. I have Splash 10 and 8-inch, and the Crash 15.
Okay.
Sabian AAX 14 hi-hats.
Nice.
Yes.
So, yeah, I've got a mix as well. Like, I have Zildjian, and then I've been really getting into Meinl lately.
I haven't tried as much of their stuff out. I need to, because I mean, they have so many incredible artists, and they all sound great. And Benny Greb and
that's what that when I heard the Benny Greb Sand Ride, I'm like, oh, I must have that, and I will figure a way out to have this, and I did. I saved and saved and saved, and but I'm starting to like doing the podcast and social media, and you're probably well aware of this. There's so many companies out there.
So many. I had no idea. No idea. And a lot of them just don't have a huge marketing team, and they're just kind of boutique-y type brands. But there really are so many. I remember one of the first things I did when I started Groovru was I made this like made in the USA list, and also like made in Canada and like Turkey as well. And then it was just amazing to me. All these drum companies, all these cymbal companies that I never even heard of. I'd spent all the years getting the magazines and everything, and there's a lot out there. And I like trying it all out because everybody's got something a little different and cool to bring to the table.
Yeah, for sure. It's and like especially cymbals, like there's so many different countries represented. Like I found like some that are Australian. I'm like New Zealand and Italy. Italy has like one of the world's famous like cymbal makers is from there. Like Murat Drill. I think he's like. Have you ever heard of him?
Yeah.
Like, he's like based out of Italy, and I'm like, I did not know that. It's just super cool. And that's what I love doing about this podcast, just finding out about all this stuff, and
so much of it is that, same thing for me too, man. It's like, as much as I love drums, there's always a million different things that are pulling at your attention. And this kind of gives me a way to be like, okay, I got to go do this for Groovru. So, okay, this is pretty cool. And then all of a sudden I get lost in a 2.5 hour hole of drumming where I might have, otherwise been somewhere else doing something that probably isn't as important, or is maybe more important, but I don't want to do it as much.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's really helped me, just expand my horizons and listen to more drummers and talk to people and, get feedback on my own drumming. It's really great for that. I love, the drumming community is super supportive for the most part. There's a few, gotta be a few dicks out there.
There's a few dicks out there for sure.
But that's okay.
I've come to like, almost like, it was really bothering me a couple months ago. And then finally I'm like, all right, screw it. I'll just, when you ignore them, I think that just makes them even more mad, and then they just give up. But like once you start like feeding them, like, listen, no, I'm going to correct the record. Then they go after you even more. You're like, oh, son of a bitch. I'm just dropping it. So
I found that not too many internet fights result in positive, results.
No.
At the end of the day, I can't even think of one. So yeah, in terms of haters, sometimes people have good criticism to say, but it's masked in maybe an ugly, hateful statement. And so what you try and do with that stuff is you just take out, okay, he's, maybe he's right about that. Maybe my right hand is a little, whatever, slower than my left, whatever it is. And you take that and ignore the part where he calls you a fucking asshole or whatever. and you find something good in it. There's always that possibility with whatever somebody's throwing at you.
Yeah. Well, and I've learned also to stop talking like shit about drummers I don't like. Just for the sake of, especially now, I can not like these drummers, but I can also just keep that to myself.
Sure.
Which is important.
I think that's a very important lesson, as well as for myself, is, a lot of these drummers who I maybe hated when I was like 12 or 13, and now I'm coming around to be like, oh my God, these guys are amazing. I don't want that to be the case. My own ignorance to be like, I really don't like these guys. Maybe, some people, I probably don't really like, and I'll probably never like their drumming. And that's fine. Some people are never going to like my drumming. That's just the way it is. It's all personal preference. But that's okay.
Yeah. Well, and then also, like, I used to be so, Joey Jordanson. I just thought was such a giant prick just the way he came off. And then, I never like verbalized it. And then turns around, he comes out and he has like some horrible, muscular dystrophy disease or something like that. And I'm like, oh, good thing I didn't bash it, because, he couldn't help it. He was in pain, and
probably in a lot of pain. And that's usually the case with anybody who's lashing out like that, man. So usually you just, you take what you can out of it and just feel bad for them, because usually they're hateful because they're in a lot of pain themselves and they're looking for a release on it. And it's usually not a healthy one. Yeah.
So I'm glad that that social media was not as popular when I was younger, because I would have been like the worst person probably on not trolling people, but just being negative. And luckily with age comes maturity.
Sure.
And kids, you kind of like calm down and you're like, okay, I can have I don't like this person's drumming. Keep it yourself. Just keep it to yourself, and just move on. And
sure.
It's but it's also, you never know, especially when you talk crap about somebody, they may turn out to be a fan.
Sure.
And you don't want to be like, don't go listen to podcast A through Z because I did talk some major shit about you. Sorry.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely. Or just a business connection or just a friend, man. Even if you don't like their drumming, they could still be the coolest person in the world. And
for sure,
it's so hard to judge people. I mean, you really shouldn't, but we do from behind a computer screen, right? Usually, the time we're on social media is when we're pissed off and we're looking to vent about something. I know I am when I'm pissed off about politics or my own drumming or something. That's like the first place I'll go, right? It's because it feels good to express it like that. But you should also take that with a grain of salt and realize that probably everybody else around you is doing that same thing. And so when they say something that's maybe a little angry or something, just take it with a grain of salt and realize they're kind of venting to the world as if that's the thing with Twitter. It's kind of like a diary or like your own close group of friends, right? Like people would never say a lot of the stuff that they say on Twitter in the past to people, like in general, right? You never go shout that stuff out in public.
No,
those are the kind of things that you talk about with your friends, and there's the good side of it where there's a lot more information out there and you can somewhat see what people are thinking. And then there's also the, easily quick to judge and, just make people out to be something they're not necessarily.
Yeah. And, your social media is very positive. You don't really, go out and, badmouth people. You're more uplifting and, more trying to reach, hey, we're all drummers. Let's appreciate being drummers and celebrate drumming. And
that's what I try and make it about, because it's about it's about love over hate. I try and make it, and there's certainly there's times when I'm angry and why is that drummer in that band? I'm as good as him and all that ego stuff that comes out. But I keep that to myself and work on that in my own time. And as far as social media and Groovru and everything else, let's share all the positive, happy stuff, because drumming is an amazing thing that brings literally the whole world together. You can drum, and that that resonates with everyone across the world, because that's deeply ingrained. If you're into evolution, old monkeys will take sticks and bash them on logs and play, right? And we're doing a slightly more advanced form of that now, but it's deep in there, man. It's a beautiful thing. I love drumming. I love music.
Yeah, I love it. And when it comes to your fan base, where is the most popular? Do you know? Or
I haven't actually looked at total demographics like that. I definitely, when I first started, because I was in New York when I originally started Groovru, just because of time zones and stuff. I think a lot of times you'll end up with a lot of people just on your same time clock being your fans. So I think I started and had more of a base out there, and moving out here I think has made it a little easier to access the West Coast audience. But at that same time, maybe it's a little harder for me to access East Coast or Europe. I definitely had a lot of London, UK, Scotland fans early on, because that's more in the East Coast time zone. But
it's interesting. Have you tried the Google? Oh, not Google. Instagram analytics when you on your thing? Have you tried that yet?
I haven't looked at that. Yeah.
If you make your page not a private page or not a public personal page, you make it a business page.
Okay.
You get access to the analytics, and it will tell you your top countries and your top cities, which is really cool. And I just realized my biggest audience is not the U.S. It's actually Brazil. And,
wow. Really?
And I would never have thought that. But then when I go back and I look at comments, a lot of them are in Portuguese or or a different language, and I'm like, well, that's weird. Why is? And then it comes out Rio and San Pablo are the biggest cities for me.
I'm gonna have to look that up. That's cool.
Yeah, and then followed by Mexico City, Jakarta, and Santiago, Argentina. So it's like,
wow,
it's all international, and I'm like, that's so weird. And I don't know, it's just kind of amazing. You think your audience, I thought my audience would have been, the U.S., and I think the biggest country is like overall, like is the U.S., but actually like
people in city, right.
Cities are Brazil and like the Indonesia and then Argentina, which is super cool. And and it makes me feel good. Like, oh, I'm reaching people from countries that I would not necessarily thought I would have, and
never.
Yeah,
right. These countries that you maybe even like never really even get discussed in American news. There's a lot of places out there, and we don't, especially as Americans, we don't always know about them. And I remember like one of the first times I put out a drum cover. Just like on YouTube, and I saw that someone in like Thailand or something had seen it, and that was just like a totally mind blowing thing that something I recorded in my room, and this probably makes me sound old. I'm only 24, but like just that power to be able to put something up that you made, put it on the internet, just on your computer at home, and all of a sudden it can go literally anywhere in the world instantly now. Like that power is incredible. I think we kind of undervalue that sometimes because it's so constant now.
Yeah, and we always forget that we especially because of the internet, we're all connected. Digitally, very easily, where when I was in high school, the internet was slow, it was all of that. And so, and most of my time was spent trying to download drum videos, I'm like, I want to watch the Carter Beauford, under the table and drumming video, I
love that one.
Yeah. But you would spend 30 minutes, trying to download a 3-minute video. And, now it's like, instantaneous,
And thank God those days are over.
Yes. It would drive me insane. Then you would have your parents out and you get all okay. I need to make a phone call. Like,
yep,
it's got like 10 minutes. Can you wait? Like, no, I can't wait. And it's just the technology is such an amazing thing. It's so awesome. So
and that applies to drumming though too. It's like all these drum companies wouldn't be able to exist and make all these drum sets if it wasn't for all this technology and robots and everything being able to bring down costs to a point where more and more companies can produce this drum gear, as well as obviously the advancements in electronic drum gear. They've been around for a while, but there's a lot of really good electronic drum sets and a lot of really good drum samples out there that you might not necessarily have had back in the early days.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, especially electric drums. They've come light years away. And the capacities and all that. So it's a cool thing.
The brain and looping and everything. I mean, it's a lot of these concepts existed, but it's really just a whole other level now.
Do you get into the electric drum stuff?
So I live in San Francisco, which is a pretty big city, and I do have a warehouse where I can keep my acoustic kit down there, and I'm able to play with my band pretty regularly. But as far as at home, I have an acoustic setup that I teach lessons on, and then I also have my electric kit that's in a different room that I practice on. I would say I end up practicing on that electric kit just about every day. It's not necessarily by choice. The EDM scene is not necessarily my thing. I think there's some incredible drummers like Michael Schnock who do that stuff. And I, no knocks against any of those guys, but it's not necessarily my thing. But in terms of practice, it's really hard to beat being able to play as loud as you want, essentially, without pissing off your neighbors.
Yeah, or the people you live with too.
Well, that too. Yeah, I had my first move out to Oakland. Before I moved to San Francisco, I moved out to Oakland for a year, and I just had my acoustic kit out there, and my neighbors were pretty upset. I got a couple calls and visits from the landlord,
the police.
Our friends, the police, and so that's kind of what initiated the electric kit.
Yeah, it's more out of necessity than
If I could play an acoustic kit every day, that would definitely be my choice. There's so much, feel, and especially like just feeling the head. As good as mesh heads are, and I have mesh heads all around, it's not the same. It's definitely not the same. And the tonal control is most especially what you just can't replicate with electric yet. They'll probably get there.
They'll get there, but it's still like you said, there's just something about just a real kit. You can't beat it, you know.
And not only is it the feel, I mean, like the literal feel of the stick against the head, but I think like, you know, the actual acoustical vibrations that are making your body resonate versus when you're in an electric set. I'm usually playing in headphones, which, you know, it's pretty good, but I'm not getting hit in the chest with those bass frequencies like I am when I'm actually hitting the kick drum. And your body just doesn't respond quite in, you know, the same way. There's something about when you have that nice, you know, tight snare and a fat kick drum, and they're hitting you in the chest and in the head, and you're snapping up and back and doing the whole headbanging thing that I find it's just not the same in the electric kit.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I always like to ask this question: what other things are you into besides drums? Because I get the two answers of it's always drums and drums and drums, and then add drums plus drums, and you're like, okay, I get it. Or you know, like there's people like me. I'm a big movie snob, you know, not snob, but nerd. Let's just say, and podcast nerd. So I even though our Suicide Squad sucks. Anyways, I'm just leaving it at that. Have you seen it yet?
I haven't seen it yet, so I won't argue.
Okay.
Save that for the next time.
And I'll just leave it at that. But anyways, yeah, I have those other things that, you know, I like to do. Do you have those as well?
Man, I feel like I have a hard time finding time in my day to do all the different things that I'm interested in doing. I like, you know, drumming obviously, and then Groovru takes up time, which is just an extension of drumming. But then on top of that, I mentioned I do, you know, television and movie writing, so I'm doing that, trying to make people laugh and take that onto the screen, doing it that way. You know, podcast guy, definitely. I'm big into stand-up comedy. Who
are some of your stand-ups?
Bill Burr.
Oh, Bill Burr, and he's a drummer too.
I know, it's awesome.
That would be like the get. If I could have like him on. Oh, it'd be awesome.
Yeah. Oh, I hear you there, man. Yeah, no, he's one of my favorites, and yeah, the list that Doug Stanhope, George Carlin, rest in peace. Yeah. So yeah, stand up is great. What else am I into? Baseball. Like I said, we're doing a baseball bat company over here. So
who's your team?
I'm a Yankees fan.
Yankees fan, okay.
And so everyone else hates me, but we do win a lot, just not this year. And
I'm a Red Sox fan. So
okay. We got beef.
We got to talk. All right, we got to shut it down. No, I'm just kidding.
No, so yeah, and that I also do the social media for Birdman Bats baseball company I'm part of as well. So that's been cool getting to connect with like Raul Ibanez. We sent a bat off to him and Manny Ramirez and all these you know, amazing players that I looked up to. I was big into baseball growing up, playing and watching. So you know, getting to connect with them, it's kind of a different, but the same thing I do with Groovru in terms of these are some like my childhood heroes, just in a different capacity that I'm getting to, you know, talk to and just be like, thanks. That's really what it's about, you know, especially with all like the shirts I'm sending off to drummers. It's just a thank you. A lot of these, you know, these people have put in, you know, how much time it takes to practice to get to where you're at now. And then some of these people have taken it, you know, to incredible heights, and just as a way of being like, you've pushed drumming to a level that, you know, maybe people didn't even think was possible, or in a different direction that no one had ever thought of. And thank you for taking the time and doing that, because otherwise it wouldn't have existed. For sure. That's what it's about.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, it's always good to have those couple other things to like kind of, you know, you can get out of your, you know, for me, my drumming head, and, you know, get into you know, just kind of relax. Like I threw on Scott Pilgrim, and I'm like, oh, just sit back and just watch that and just chill out. And I'm actually going to the beach next week, and I'm trying to make like a concerted effort to like not get on social media. Like,
good luck.
I know it's gonna be very hard, but like I bought one of those adult coloring books. I'm like, because I used to draw all the time in school. I'm like, I'm gonna color, you know. Damn it.
That'll be really meditative.
Yeah. And cool. I'm hoping, and that's what I'm hoping. I hope it'd be very meditative and like, you know, kind of like reset my you know, being, you know, kind of just
also exercise, man. I know like drummers are the athletes of the band, dude. I know there's a lot of drummers that aren't in good shape that can really, really play. But I promise you, if they were in better shape, they could play just a little bit better. They wouldn't get as tired. So that's, you know, that you got to find time for that too. I'm big into yoga as a way of getting loose and stretching, and I have a herniated disc in my back, so that kind of helps keep everything in line. Make sure I can drum, because if you're sitting on the throne and something's hurting, that's just taking away energy and thought that you need to be putting into making good music.
For sure, yeah. Well, and like speaking of exercise, like it's Eric Moore on, you know, he he has gone through
amazing
transformation. Yeah. I mean, he's lost what 150 pounds or more.
You might have even said 200 on the drumming lesson. It's really incredible to see that cat, because I mean he's an amazing drummer.
He was amazing when he was big, but like now he just looks like he is. He's got just a lot more just energy that he can just put into going nuts.
And he does. Yeah, and that's a beautiful example, man. That's the one I was going to pull too. Of your body's a tool, and you're using all of it when you're drumming. Mm-hmm. There's nothing that you're not using. Your left foot, right foot, left hand, right hand. You need to have your core engaged so you're not slumping over and putting your face into your snare drum. It's constant work on your body, and if your body's not ready for it, you're going to take some of that energy that you would have put into drumming and put it into trying to stay upright, or balancing on one leg and putting weight somewhere where it shouldn't be, just to try and compensate. Staying healthy. I know it's hard to find time, but
it's like warming up. You being a drum teacher, you probably teach the value of don't get behind the kit cold and just start ripping.
Always. Right, always. I mean, and I fight myself to do that, right? Usually when I'm trying to play, I'm like, let's go. I'm ready to hit. I had my day, I'm trying to take all my anger out. But no, it's so important doing the whole, Tony Royster Jr. does a really good warm-up routine, where he's, warming up each of the fingers kind of individually and wrists, stuff like that, especially with everyone, we're typing and we're always on our phones, all the finger, little repetitive stress injury type things. I know I certainly have days where my fingers aren't feeling 100%.
yeah, for sure.
So it's important. It's all connected. It's and the knee bone is connected to the thigh bone. It's the famous kids song. It's the same with muscles and all that. You got to keep everything in tune.
Yeah, it's like always. When I was single, I would be like, I'd show off my drumming muscle. That one right there. I'd be like, check it out, ladies. Bam! They're like, you're so stupid. I'm like, oh, check out that dude. I know he may have check it. Not. So he doesn't have it. He doesn't have it. And, just go away. So.
No, you got to show off the forearms. That's what it's about. Yeah. Us drummers should have big forearms.
Yeah, because I did that line when I was dating my wife. I'm like, yeah, check that out, and she's like, oh, that's quite impressive. I'm like, I like you.
She's a keeper, huh?
Yeah, I'm gonna keep. Well, she's a keeper in more ways than one, because we dated for a whole year, and we talked about getting married, and she was like, it's our 1 year anniversary. What do you want? And I kind of sarcastically said, oh, I'd love to have the Stuart Copeland snare drum. And I was like, well, I'm guessing, if we're going to get married, you want an engagement ring. So we made it. I got the engagement ring, and she's like, oh, by the way, there's your Stuart Copeland snare drum. I'm like, oh, are you kidding me? And, people are like, where did you get that? I'm like, my soon-to-be wife got me that. And they're like, she's a keeper. I'm like, she is a keeper.
That's a good gift. That's a good gift.
Yeah, I lucked out in more ways than one, because she's been very super supportive of the podcast as well. It's like, when I say I need to invest in a new piece of equipment, when I got the Zoom recorder and stuff like that, she was not like, she was like, no, I get it. We'll save money and, we'll get it. And, luckily that happened.
Things cost money. It's just, anything you're trying to do, especially you're trying to build a fan base, 1 to, 1 million people, it's going to cost money. Technology costs money. Time costs money. Your own time.
Yeah. And you're probably well aware of, people just think, oh, you've got so many followers, you just must be making tons of money. You're like, no, it's not like people are sending me $5 checks for, just for the hell of it.
I love that. Please send me a $5 check.
Yes, please send me and Matt both a $5 check, and we'd be set. But, people think once you hit a certain level, you don't have to work at it anymore.
And I definitely thought that too.
Yeah, I did too.
When I started out, I was like, I'll reach 10,000 followers, I'll be golden, never have to work again, right? And that's, that's just silly, naive thinking as a young person.
Yeah, and if anything, you have to work harder when you get up to that level. Because the expectation of still delivering on content and stuff like that is actually more intense, because, interviewing drummers, here in my hometown that nobody knows of, that's not really going to get me anywhere.
Sure.
I have to reach out to these other drummers and, say, hey, Elise, would you want to be on the podcast? And, negotiate times and stuff like that.
And you never know unless you ask, man. That's what it comes down to, right? It's like all these guys that I have following me and whatever, all it was, I was just like, hey, I like your drumming. I've got this thing going on. Check it out. If you like it, follow.
Yeah.
And I've probably said that to people. I know I've said that to people like hundreds of times. No response. Like some of my favorites, Chad Smith, right? Still not following. And that would be
yeah. I try to get Stuart Copeland tagged like everything I want. I'm like, I want Stuart Copeland to follow me. Just follow me, Stuart, and he won't do it. And it's so frustrating. Yeah. And, but then you get like those random people who you would like never think like, Trey Cool's following me. He's commenting on my stuff. What the hell, Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like, I love Trey Cool. Yeah.
When I was starting out early, I was probably like 700 followers or something on Twitter, and Travis Barker followed me, and I was at work, I was in the car driving, and I just like yelled, I was like, ah! To me that I grew up listening to so much Blink and all the really cool, the way he takes pop punk drumming in just a totally different direction than most other people. To me that was like a dream come true, and to have all those those moments every once in a while, that's what keeps it going. Yeah. It's definitely not the money. Yeah, there's no money.
Yeah, it's when you get like, Zildjian's following. You're like, yeah, I got Zildjian following me.
Right. Or just they acknowledge your existence. It's wow,
it's a cool thing, and but it's definitely a labor of love at times. There's some days you're like, man, the hell is this? I'm out. And you're like, you just want to, you get tired, and then you're like, all right, never mind, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, and I think that's where having those other things, balance, comes into play, right? Where there's some days where you're like, oh man, if I send another tweet, I'm gonna have to go somewhere and leave, never come back. And you gotta fight through those and be like, what's something else how else can I spend my time right now? I can maybe it is just drumming. Maybe I can go drum, and that's what I do instead. I get off social media and I go drum, or whatever it might be. For me, it's writing sometimes, or whatever. It's good to have that balance, so you're not just, when you're really frustrated, one thing, which is totally inevitable with anything you're going to do. All these things that I do, I'm sure you're the same way. You reach that point. I reached that point in a script where I'm like, I just wrote 100 pages. I want to throw everything away that I just did, hundreds of hours. Just throw it away. Yeah. And, that's kind of part of the journey of it, is you kind of got to hate it enough to, like, that's the labor of love. You're right.
It's like putting furniture together. Like, I have to yell and curse at it a lot for it to, finally come together. It's like,
it's that Bill Burr bit.
It's that Bill Burr bit. I will break 10 of these. Yeah. And I'm pretty much, I'm like, just when I built something together, please leave, so I can like focus my rage just onto this, And they're like, okay. Luckily, I'm at that point. I'm not having to put furniture together.
There you go. Yeah, not moving as much anymore. You're a little settled.
Yeah, a little settled. So those sometimes I'm like, oh my god, if I had money, I would pay so much money for someone to put the couch together or the table together.
Sure. But
sure.
I'm like, and the flip side, man. Like, as much as I love being in content control, having me behind the wheel, there's other days where I'd be like, man, it'd be really nice to hire someone to do all my tweeting for me.
Yeah.
But right now, not a thing. And also, I have a hard time letting go of it, because it's something that I built pretty much from the ground up by myself. Help with a few people. Benji Geisler, shout out to him for helping me design the logo. But yeah, it's a labor of love, and I certainly do love it. But it is work.
It is work, and I think that's why I wanted to have you on, is was to kind of like both of us share the experience of having to do what we do, and I think I think people would appreciate more hearing us vocalize it in a long form conversation.
I hope so, because you can't convey that via Twitter. No one knows what we're going through, and I don't want to make it sound like, oh, poor us, we're going through, because like I said, this is, to me, like literally every time I get to connect with a drummer that I've heard on a track that I love, this is a dream come true. I wouldn't have it any other way, but it definitely is time consuming, and there's a lot of times, especially early on, where there's no reward at all. You're sending off tweets that get no likes, no favorites. You're trying to connect with your favorite drummer, and you're hitting him 100 times, and he's ignoring you. And that's just part of life, though. You're gonna fail at anything you really try at. Part of the deal is just getting over that and keep on pushing. That's all it really is. For me, is I don't think I know there's a lot better drummers than I am out there. I'm working on getting better every single day. But for me, it was just I had something I wanted to say in a particular way. Felt like I could do a lot of research, and I understand the internet well enough to find out cool little facts or like little behind the scenes drum stuff that I wasn't necessarily seeing like on modern drummer Twitter feed or stuff. That was kind of how I initially got started. I kind of wanted to go at it from a humor perspective, because I'd been really into writing movie scripts at that time before I even started Groovru, and I was thinking there's a lot of really serious, drum. This is what gear is, and this is the rolling whatever, and that stuff's all cool too, and I love that. But there's the lighthearted side, fun side of drumming and music that I kind of wanted to bring to the table.
Yeah.
I've tried to keep that up while still integrating, some of the tech stuff. All of that is important. At the end of the day, it's all drumming, but that's my base, is really trying to keep it fun and lighthearted, and let's laugh about drums and this crazy situation that we all chose to be in together. And we're all drummers.
And that's what I've noticed about your feed it's got some humor to it, and everybody's got their niche, and humor is a niche that a lot of drummers can relate to, because we've all had those situations. You're like, oh yeah, I remember that. Sure. Yeah.
And you find a lot of drummers. I know us two are not the only ones who are in a stand up too. I know Dave Ellich is a big Bill Burr fan, and it's cool seeing the common interest that we all share, because there is something weird going on upstairs that makes us all do what we do, that we all have in common. And, seeing how that manifests itself is always so cool to me.
It's the, I always say, or not, who was it? Chris Hardwick said, we all have that, look at me disease.
Whether I think that entertainers in general, and artists, I think in any capacity kind of have that. From that deep sense of feeling like maybe the whole world and life is potentially helpless and useless. But that's part of the fun, right? Yeah. And I think we express that through art and through music, and everybody sings and gathers around and smiles and laughs and cries together, and you don't get that with most other things in life, which is why I always really come back to music and drumming and comedy and art, just as a whole, as a way to express stuff, because that's where I got it. A lot of my ideas came from me listening to George Carlin at a young age. A lot of my drum ideas came from me listening to Chad Smith and Travis Barker and John Bonham at a young age and learning that stuff. So got to get them while they're young. So hopefully there's some youngins listening to the podcast today.
Yeah, there are some young ones. It's mainly, I'm trying to think what the age. It's like 17 to 30 is like the demo range, pretty much.
30.
But podcasting's still a relatively newish thing.
Sure.
It's hard to explain to people what a podcast is.
Very, very. It makes almost no sense, but it's crazy how big it's blown up.
But I think people now are like, oh, I want to know more about an artist or know about a drummer, and they're like, oh, there's an hour-long conversation or a 45-minute conversation. Oh, this is perfect. No interruptions. There's no commercials. Yeah.
That's exactly what it is, and that's for musicians. And I think it's great. Bill Burr's Monday Morning Podcast is great. I'm sure you check that out. And there's a lot of guests that come on, like Joe Rogan Experience, that I listen to, that have really unique, interesting perspectives that you're just not going to get to hear if you're tuning onto your television, or you're going to have to dig for it really, really, really deep on the internet to find some of this stuff, and some of it is totally, mind shifting information. And I think you take all of that into your approach to drumming. You're not a Democrat or a Republican when you're behind a kid. Obviously, you're a drummer, but I think there's something about whatever mindset you have, whatever your philosophical beliefs may be, that it's going to affect your drumming in some way. And I'm not saying it's negative or positive, but it's gonna it's gonna express itself some way.
Some way, for sure. Yeah. You can't really mask that, and that's the beauty of podcasting as well, is you can't really be fake. You get called out on your bullshit really quick, and I did. I tried to fake it a little bit at first, and I got called out for it, and then it was like a moment of like, oh, I can not be this way, and. Yeah.
And that's you taking some hateful criticism that was some good stuff mixed in there, and you taking the good stuff and changing. That's cool, man.
Yeah.
Because people are saying that stuff for a reason. Sometimes that reason is because they're in a lot of pain and they just want to lash out and they don't care who they hurt, and they're totally wrong. And sometimes they have a little nugget of truth in there, and it's there's just a lot of anger behind it. You got to strip all that away.
And it was the podcast I recorded by myself, just being honest about how I had a trip to LA and how much I learned about myself and blah, blah, blah. And then like all of a sudden the podcast took off. I'm like, oh, that was me not being honest about us, what's going on. And that was kind of the
well,
moment.
it's a hard thing, man. I mean, you know, it's everyone's got their insecurities and their fears, and it's to sit up here and, you know, talk and have your thoughts recorded in live time. It's like, it's a little scary, man. For sure.
Well, and then also, you know, my family is like, you know, super right-wing conservative Christians, and I'm like, do I want to say the stuff I actually really think? And I'm like, and at this point, I'm like, I do.
But that's part of it is, you know, you forcing yourself to open up in that way is kind of, you know, it's making you express yourself in all these new ways, and it's been the same thing with me using Groovru as kind of a platform. It's helped me maybe discover my own voice in a little bit of a way, because you have that quote unquote mask of the Drumheads pod or Groovru in front of you. So it's not me, Matt Tucci. It's not you, the face. It's, you know, there's a brand in front of it. And for me, I know that helped, because when it's just, you know, it's your face on there and your name, it's like, do I really want to say that? Is that stupid? You start second guessing yourself and doing all that other stuff way more instead of just letting it out. And that's what it's, you know, Twitter is just like music. You got to play, improvise, express, get it all out there. If you're just sitting there thinking, I don't want to do that, all of a sudden what you just said is no longer relevant, unfortunately.
Do I want to curse on my podcast? And at first I didn't. I'm like, I don't want to like.
I was going to ask you if I could swear.
Oh, go, have at it. It's one of those, like, I know there's certain people who listen to it that are, you know, family members that would be like, oh, I can't believe he said that. And I'm like, okay, I'm 32. I'm at the point of like, you know, this is the way I talk, and if you don't like it, then piss off kind of attitude. And
I'd be in the get over it camp myself personally. But
yeah. And so I'm like, you know, there's times to curse and there's times to not. And I know when, you know, I wasn't going to curse a lot on the podcast with like maybe a Christian drummer, because I know they're not going to really, you know, go for that. But if it's, you know, if it's someone that's just a drummer, you know, I'm gonna let it fly. I'm a
drummer.
Yeah.
I'm down to say some shit and some other damn.
Yeah.
All those great words. I love those words.
Yeah. And you know, at this point, I don't care if my family gets offended by it, you know, because it's not their podcast, it's my podcast. So.
It's yours, and I think they'll probably still love you. And if they don't, then that's a whole other situation you got to deal with. But you got to be you at the end of the day. So many people run into that, man. That's not just, you know, that's not you with a podcast. It's everyone. So many people just go into jobs they don't want. You know, that was a big thing with me. Is I didn't want to get a job I didn't want to do. You know, right out of college, I graduated. I'm really glad that I studied audio, but I don't want to go sitting in the studio doing other people's music that I don't really like for 15, 18 hours a day. Right? I was willing to do that for my own album because it was my music. I was really passionate about it. But for other people, especially if it's a song I don't like, you know, if I'm sitting there listening to a country pop something, I'm not going to be there. It's not interesting to me. I'm not engaged. I'm not going to be doing my best work. So
it's just, you know, and you know, like I said, being fake is it's so relevant, you know, because, you know, you could be fake 10 years ago and not people like call you out on it. You know, now you can't. You know, it's like the Jim Gaffigan joke. It's like, you know, don't be thrown off by my British accent, you know. And I don't drink either. They're like, what? You know, and it's like, when you have different groups of friends, you can't do that now. You got to be who you are and accept it.
Right.
So.
And, you know, this is Groovru's been a good platform for me to get that stuff out because, you know, I certainly have, like everyone, I have my own political, philosophical, whatever beliefs, but I'm not always so sure about those. So I'm not one that I'm going to go out there and tell you necessarily what I think on my personal page about X, Y, and Z, because to be quite honest, I'm not sure I really know about X, Y, or Z.
Well, and the times that I have got political, it's like the worst criticisms ever. It's like, I remember I put something out about like, anti-Trump, and it was like, you know, oh, he's the best, you suck, you know, and I'm unfollowing this page, you know. I think I had posted something about like gun violence month or something like that. The most like benign, like common sense thing, and people just lost their shit. I'm like, calm down. They're like, I am unfollowing this page. I'm like, fine, go unfollow it. Yeah. Right.
And that's, you know, I try and keep, you know, politics out of that, but at the same time, like, I don't know if it was your page, it was another, I think, someone put up a picture, like a video of Hillary Clinton and Obama, and there's some caption about like the face you make when your bass player and the drummer hit the groove together and they're looking at each other, and it's, you know, it had nothing to do with, you know, politics at all, and I see ugly people on the comment section just being like, oh, you Hillary shill, blah blah blah, and I'm no Hillary fan either, or a Trump fan, third party for me, but they're political figures. You can make fun of them, and that's okay. But I think it's important, especially with drumming, to separate. I'm not going to go out there and put my political beliefs into the drumming stuff, but I do think you can use like a Hillary picture or a picture of Trump. If you put Trump on a drum set, I'm going to want to post that picture because that probably looks hilarious.
That would look hilarious, yeah.
That's what I'm saying, and I'm not a Trump fan, but there's people, I think especially during political season are so quick to jump in and just get offended about shit, man. Everyone's gotta relax a little bit, dude. Just play some drums, play some music, go hug your friend. Mm-hmm. It's all good.
For sure. Well, cool, man. Well, I appreciate you being on. So just, what plugs you got?
My plugs. So we got Groovru.com coming pretty soon. I will have a website up there with sweatshirts and t-shirts, and I also just got some girls' tanks in there, so look out for those. I'll probably actually make those as soon as I'm off the podcast here with you.
Wrap it up, son.
I got that. My band. Please go check out my band, Daytime Nightlife. We're on Spotify or our website, daytimenightlife.com. It's all free. We're giving this music away. That was another labor of love. I spent literally 15, 18 hours a day. I stepped away from Groovru a little bit and focused on that, and made an album that I'm really proud of that we built from the ground up. So please check that out, Daytime Nightlife, on Spotify. And then if you're into baseball, Birdman Bats. It's another thing that I do, and I'll be making some Groovru sticks, partnering with them in the near future as well. And obviously Twitter, Instagram, really active on both of those.
You got a Facebook page?
I do. It's a little younger than the rest of them. I started that a little while ago, but I
started mine 2 years ago, and it's like everything is like reposted from either Twitter or Instagram. So it's
same.
Like, and people are like, you only have like 500 something followers. I'm like, because I don't care about Facebook.
Yeah, same. Yeah, the way the whole Facebook restriction in terms of your audience, I gave up. Not gave up.
I'm not paying you guys $10 to boost my posts.
Right. Although Instagram, it might be moving that way too. Let's hope not. Yeah, but yeah, man, that's Groovru. Check it out. Check out my music. Just keep on checking out the Drumheads pod, man. Thank you for having me on. This is a lot of fun. I always love talking to people who are interested in music as I am. Mm-hmm. You get to chat drums and life a little bit too. So thank you.
I saw that.
Yeah,
it's funny because I have kids. Sometimes my kids will like burst in and like they'll be like, I'm like, all right.
It happens. Right. I'm borrowing my buddy's room right now, so I was wondering if that was going to happen.
It's all good. All right, man. Well, you take it easy. So I'm going to stop the podcast real quick.